The European Union's €90 billion Ukraine loan has quietly created a new opening for Britain to plug itself back into Europe's defence ecosystem, using support for Kyiv as the bridge to rebuild strategic security links that had frayed after Brexit. London could gain access to a vast €60 billion pot of weapons spending if it agreed to shoulder part of the borrowing costs, effectively buying its way into a scheme that lets Ukraine purchase missiles, drones and other high-end kit from approved foreign suppliers, including potentially British ones. By helping cover the interest bill on the Ukraine loan, Britain stood to win a stream of lucrative defence contracts, giving UK firms preferential access when Kyiv shops for equipment and turning financial solidarity into concrete industrial orders for its arms manufacturers. This pay-to-play proposal has revived talk of a broader defence rapprochement between London and Brussels, coming only months after negotiations over UK participation in the EU's big safe defence fund collapsed in acrimony over how much Britain should pay to join. For Britain, the emerging deal turns backing Ukraine into a test of its post-Brexit identity, forcing London to choose whether it stays a semi-detached Atlantic power or leans back into Europe's security architecture by paying to shape, and profit from, the continent's new defence order. EU member states have finally approved a long-awaited €90 billion loan intended to keep Ukraine's war-battered economy functioning, ensuring the country can sustain its military effort while avoiding a sudden financial collapse over the next 2 years. The support package is calibrated to cover roughly two-thirds of Kyiv's projected funding needs through 2027, with the remainder expected from G7 and other partners, making the EU the single largest backer of Ukraine's medium-term financial stability. The decision comes as Ukraine endures relentless Russian strikes on its energy grid and heating infrastructure during a brutal winter, leaving millions at risk of blackouts and freezing temperatures unless foreign aid keeps critical services running. The European loan is structured so Kyiv can channel funds into defense spending while still paying civil servants, maintaining essential public services, and covering pensions that are now heavily dependent on external support because domestic revenues are largely consumed by the war effort. About €60 billion was earmarked for Ukraine's weapons, ammo, and other defense needs. Around €30 billion was reserved to support the budget and keep basic state services running. The money was meant to help cover salaries, pensions, and key public services into 2026 to 2027. The package was built to meet about two-thirds of Ukraine's total financing needs. Most of the cash had to be spent on Ukrainian and EU defense suppliers, with little scope to buy elsewhere. Exceptions let Ukraine buy from non-EU firms only if crucial gear was not available in Europe. If essential systems could not be sourced in Europe, Kyiv would be allowed to apply for special waivers to purchase them overseas. This flexibility was intended to let Ukraine obtain crucial non-EU weapons, such as advanced air defense platforms like Patriot batteries, when European options fell short. A revised draft added 2 new clauses to make it easier for Ukraine to buy weapons from trusted non-EU allies that already have formal security agreements with Brussels, quietly widening the scheme beyond purely European suppliers. One of those clauses was crafted with the UK in mind, dangling access to the scheme on the condition that London made what both sides could call a fair financial contribution to the overall Ukraine package. No concrete figure was attached to that fair contribution, a deliberate choice to avoid an immediate political row over exact numbers and give negotiators space to find a formula later. Officials argued Brussels could not sensibly set a price tag until it knew how many British projects might qualify and how deeply the UK wanted to plug into the new defence funding route. Under the outline, Kyiv could place orders for British weapons so long as the UK agreed to cover a share of the EU's interest costs specifically linked to those UK-sourced contracts. Member states still had to hammer out which British defence products would actually qualify, leaving open arguments over whether only high-end systems or a broader range of kit would be covered. All this sat on top of a new UK-EU security and defence pact, part of a wider political reset meant to rebuild trust and cooperation after years of post-Brexit friction. Previous talks on letting Britain into the €150 billion safe defence fund collapsed the year before, after disputes over governance and how much London should pay to sit at the table. Even so, the UK kept stressing that its backing for Ukraine remained ironclad, and that it would keep working with G7 capitals and EU partners regardless of the funding mechanism. The loan still needed sign-off from the European Parliament, with governments aiming for the first money to start flowing from April so Kyiv would not face a funding gap in the spring.